Hello, welcome to another episode of This, That, and the Other. And today I'm going to talk about NFL teams that had their first logos. It means that basically their first helmet didn't have a logo. And the first team to get a logo was the Los Angeles Rams. 1948 was where the Rams helmet had its first logo. Rams' first logo, introduced in 1937, featured a blue and white graphical representation of a Rams head. The team's most iconic early branding was the helmet insignia, introduced in 1968 by halfback Fred Gehrke, Gehrke, who painted yellow horns on the blue leather helmets, for making the first ever logo in pro football. So he manually painted it on every one of the blue leather helmets. The second team to have a logo on a helmet was the Philadelphia Eagles in 1954. First introduced that year and popularized in 1955, distinctive silver wing on a Kelly green helmet, introduced by coach Jim Trimble. Design originally featured silver wings without an outline, often paired with a gray face mask, establishing the iconic winged helmet look that was used until 1968. Also in 1954, the Colts also introduced their first helmet with a logo, a blue helmet with the two horseshoes in the back rear part of the helmet. 1947, the Colts were part of the All-American Football Conference, the AAFC, and they, first year, 1947, they wore a Kelly green leather helmet, and then their helmets until I think 1951, when they folded, were silver helmets with a green stripe on across the top, middle of the helmet. And Colts were acquired by the NFL when the two leagues merged, and they ran out of money. I believe folded in 1951. And you can see the 1953 helmet had no logo on it. And from what I see here, the Colts had a very dark blue helmet with the white horseshoes in the rear of the helmet in 1954, 1955. 1956, the white helmet with the two horseshoes in the rear of the helmet. Then 1957 was when the helmet the horseshoe on the side of the helmet came about, with the gray face mask all the way up until 1977. The next team to put a logo on a helmet were the Washington Redskins in 1958. And the first logo helmet was the feather. You got the maroon leather helmets, and then from 1937 to 1949, the gold helmet with a maroon stripe, and then you got the spear helmet, 1965, 1970, the R helmet, and 1978, the Indian helmet. Didn't find any information on who was behind the creation of the feather helmet or the spear helmet. However, 1969, Vince Lombardi took over as head coach of the Redskins. Only coached them for a year. They had a winning record, and then he developed cancer and died, I believe, right before the 1970 regular season started. But like the Packers G, he changed the spear helmet to an R. 1971, the Redskins hired Los Angeles Rams head coach George Allen in an effort to make his mark on the Redskins immediately and not liking the Lombardi R in the helmets. He instituted a change with the help of Native American chiefs and their approval. The Redskins logo design on the helmet was created. So that came from George Allen. We move on. We have the Cardinals, 1960. It was the year that they came up with the bird logo on their helmet. The helmet was first worn on October 2nd of 1960, and they put the bird on the helmet. It was first used when the team moved from Chicago in 1960. Featured the profile of a red cardinal bird head with a yellow beak and black features. It was worn on an all-white helmet with a gray face mask. Helmet has virtually remained unchanged over the years. But before that, I understand it was just a plain white helmet. And we move on to the New York Giants. 1961 was when they introduced the helmet with the NY on it. What I've seen, it looked similar to that, but just was a plain blue helmet before that. This is basically what the New York Giants helmet looked like from 1940 to 1960. Couldn't find any history on a logo except it came out in 1962. Correction, 1961. Which brings us to the Detroit Lions, and their logo also came out in 1961. Before that, it was just a plain silver helmet. I mean, no stripes or anything. And what I could find was 1961, the iconic silver shell with the leaping lion logo was introduced that year. Nothing else on it or who was behind it or anything. I wish there was more information on that. And that brings us to the Green Bay Packers. 1961, they introduced the G logo helmet. And it says that it was created in 1961 by the equipment manager Gerald Brashear, art student John Gordon. G stands for Green Bay, nothing more. The Packers have given permission to several schools over the years to use similar logos, including the University of Georgia. I believe, too, that Vince Lombardi was probably responsible for getting that logo put on also. I saw highlights of 1960 NFL Championship in Philadelphia, and the Packers did not have the G logo yet. Also around 1961, early 60s, when I read the commissioner, Pete Rozelle, wanted all of the NFL teams to have a logo on their helmets. All right, 1962, the Bears introduced the helmet with a white C. And like I said, it was introduced in 1962, all the way in 1972, they had the all-white C. Then 1973 to 77, they had the C with a white outline. 78 to 96, it became more circular. 1997 to present, the C went back to the 1970s shape, but has a sharper point on the end. Interesting. No information on who was behind that logo. But obviously the C stands for Chicago. Moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who also introduced their logo in 1962 on a gold helmet. And that logo is based on a U.S. Steel mark created by U.S. Steel to represent the ingredients of steel, yellow coal, orange ore, and blue scrap. The Steelers are the only NFL team to have a logo on only one side, the right, originally a temporary test on gold helmets that became permanent after success. Why one side? The equipment manager, Jack Hart, was instructed to place the logo only on the right side to test its appearance on the original solid gold helmets. After a 9-5 season, 1962, where they finally had a winning season, they decided to keep it, making a unique permanent feature. So that's interesting. What I understand, the Steelers at the beginning weren't sure they really wanted a logo on their helmet, so they decided to just put it on one side of the helmet as a test. And when the team made the playoffs that year, they switched to black helmets because they felt that the logo would show up better on a black helmet. And they stuck with the idea of a logo on one side of the helmet. Moving on, we have the 1962 San Francisco 49ers that introduced the logo on their helmet at the time, silver helmet. From 1959 to 1961, they had just the plain silver helmet. Other various colors prior to that. Sometimes the helmets were white, sometimes they were red. They only had that SF logo on the silver helmet from 1962, 1963. The next year, the helmet became the gold helmet with the same logo. All I could find on any kind of history on that logo was just, it says defined by stability, anchored by the iconic interlocking SF oval adopted in 1962. Now we're moving on to the American Football League, the AFL, and 1962 was the first year that the Bills had a logo on their helmet.